Welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast.
We have allowed ourselves to become so disconnected and ignorant about something that is as intimate as the food that we eat.
Be prepared to grow your own for victory.
God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. We are Troy and Kelly, not Harold. So you may be wondering what's up with Harold. But we are filling in for him again. We wanted to just quickly jump into just reminders of check out what Harold's got going on at smalltownhomestead.com. And also be sure to be a part of the Homestead Front Porch group on Facebook. A lot of growth there and a lot of good discussion. This week that I was looking at. So be sure to check those out again. Again, as we mentioned, we're filling in for Harold right now. He's has some personal issues going on with the family, and I do have some updates on that I'll share here shortly. But Kelly and I, we're husband and wife, and we are in central West Virginia. We have Red Tool House Farm, and we've been running that for a while. And we have our own YouTube channel, our website, and Harold has featured us on the podcast before. But we're filling in for him and hope that we can raise the bar or keep the bar where it's been set with Harold. He's been doing a great job. And if you guys listened to us last week, we probably owe you an apology. We know our audio was a little bit off, so we've hopefully corrected that issue now. And that's what I get for trying to use my video mics when I'm doing podcasting. It's kind of new for us. We're not podcasters. So also, like I said, I mentioned I wanted to give you an update on the Harold situation. I just spoke with him earlier today via the World Wide Web. And he was letting me know that his grandson is home now and doing much better. So mama and baby are home and doing well. So answered a prayer there and a blessing. His mom, however, is in ICU right now and due to some surgery complications. So she still has some things to overcome. So again, if you guys are prayers, please pray for her and just keep her in your prayers and pray for healing there. So hopefully Harold will be back. I think tentatively we were discussing he may be back next week if he can get a handle on some of the other things he's got going on. So I'm sure all you guys are going, yay, Harold's coming back. We miss him too. So we're anxious to get him back and be able to listen to some of the great stuff that he talks about. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, first we wanted to kind of give some updates. Again, many of you probably have no idea who we are and maybe some of this stuff doesn't make sense. If you're curious, you can go back and look at some of the past episodes. Like I said, there was one episode where Harold interviewed us at Red Tool House Farm. I believe that was in October, I believe. Or you can go to redtoolhouse.com and see details there, and that'll have links to all of our information as well as our YouTube channel. Well, where we are right now, we in central West Virginia in the middle of February, we'd normally be kind of iced in and dealing with snow and that type of stuff. And today it was, almost 70 degrees, Kel?
Yeah, we were in the mid-60s, I believe.
Yeah, so it was
nice.
Great. I'm running around with a T-shirt on in the middle of February. That just seems odd. So we had a nice day today. In fact, we're a little tired, so if we sound a little goofy or we sound like maybe we're talking in circles, we apologize in advance, but a little tired, did a lot of work outside today and took advantage of this weather. But so updates from our farm, our homestead, what we've got going on. We raise pastured hogs, so we're in a point in our season where our first round of hogs have been processed and they're ready to pick up from our processor and deliver to our clients. So we're excited about that. It's kind of the end of a 7-month stretch there. So we're excited to get that in the hands of people and see how that, hopefully they're as pleased with it as we've been in the past. So we'll be transporting hogs. They're a lot easier to transport back than transporting up, aren't they?
Yes. It makes for a smoother ride.
It does. Yeah. They when they're in the little freezer packs, they don't move around as much. So we're glad to have that ready. And then we've got, what do we have? 9 more?
We have 9 more that we will be transporting to the processor in March.
Yeah, March 13th, I believe. And the reason why we pushed that back, because those pigs are going to be almost 8 months old, which is a little bit further than I like to go, and your feed conversion starts to drop off there a little bit further than I want to go. But we're going to be having we're expecting next week. Next week we're expecting next week. So we didn't want to line up my transport of our last batch of hogs the same time as we're expecting 2 of our sows to farrow, because they kind of share the same space. Our barn is limited in size, and our load chutes and all that are pretty much in the same area. And I just didn't want to have the stress as the 2 sows we're trying to coax them into the barn so they'll nest and farrow in there versus going out in the woods on the pasture and farrowing. So I don't want to have all the stress of loading these piglets and all that, because they get a little stressed out, which of course would stress out the mamas and just make things complicated. So we're going to be cool and smooth, and we're going to ride for a couple more weeks on that. So we'll just have bigger pigs to take on the 13th. So, well, another exciting bit of news that we had, and I am just giddy with this. As we've mentioned, we've had such a warm winter that had a lot of rain, more rain than we normally get. But mix that with the fact that it's not snow and the temperatures have been so warm, we have just had copious amounts of mud. It's been ridiculous. Again, when you have a bunch of pigs running around, they churn it like a butter churn. So all that mud just keeps churning and being down around the barn. We had some open soil from where we had some excavating done this October. So it's just been a mess. So the great news was I finally decided to get off my wallet, and I ordered 26 tons of gravel to put around the barn there. So what was normally axle deep on my side-by-side is now glorious gravel. I was spinning and dancing and twirling around. It was quite nice. My father came down and helped me spread it out. We used the front loader on the tractor and the box scraper. Of course, it was one of those deals where this guy's rolling in with a dump truck with 26 tons on it, and you're wondering, okay, how far back can he go before he sinks up to his axles and gets stuck? And what in the world could I begin to pull a 26-ton dump truck out with? But fortunately, he didn't do that. He was a good driver, and we assessed the situation and got him as close as we could, and then we just spread and trammed the rest with a tractor. So that worked out well for us. All right, so what else? Well, we talked about, took advantage of the weather today, and we're trying to clear pasture on our property. We have 100 acres that's primarily wooded. Back in the 50s and 60s, this was a working farm, as best we can tell and what we've heard from the neighbors. But so you take about 50, 60 years worth of growth coming back. So 80 to 90% of the property is still under woods. Say it's all grown back over. So we're trying to clear, make more room for our pigs. So we were able to get out and cut some brush and clear some of that out. And so I had a nice brush fire going today. And you don't realize how strenuous that is until you go to sit down and realize every muscle in your body is sore. There's something about not being 25 anymore that kind of catches up with you this time. So how are you feeling? Are you...
I'm a little tired,
You're
a little
mobile.
sore. But I think all these farmers probably know this just as well as we do.
Yeah. Hard as you worked, and then you still sit down and did your exercises this evening, which I like to sit and have a drink and watch her do her exercises. So. All right, so that was great. So one other thing that we did, we just did that last night. We have chickens as well. We've had egg-laying chickens. We've had those for a while, and we've dabbled in meat chickens before. We've raised some for our own consumption and butchered that, so that's not new for us. But this year we want to look at raising more, not just for our personal consumption, but again for some of our customers, some of the customers that get our eggs, that get our pork. Chicken just seems to be the logical next step. And of course, everybody thinks when you do meat chickens, that you go to the old fallback, the rock of all meat chickens is the Cornish cross. The Frankenstein chicken, Goliath chicken, and Cornish cross kind of gets a bad rap. People think they're genetically modified and they're this and that, and they're not natural. They do grow very fast and they look kind of cumbersome, and they're not the prettiest bird in the world, but they aren't genetically modified. Now they are bred. Their breeding has been done where they've kind of nailed that down to know, okay, by mixing these specific breeds of chickens and maintaining these genetics, we can get a chicken that swells up like a balloon in 7 weeks. So that's the thing. And of course, you have the issues with that sometimes, are health issues. But we've discovered that if you do those on pasture, not just keep them in a building and pump and feed in them all the time, you still get a better quality of chicken. It tastes really good.
And we watched a few YouTube videos recently of someone else doing it and doing it very successfully. And so now we're all pumped to try it ourselves.
Yeah. We've watched, have a good plug for him. I've never met the guy, never talked to him, but Farm Marketing Solutions, John Siskovich, some of you guys may have listened to his podcast for a while. I don't think he's doing as much podcasting now as he's moved over to YouTube. But he's got a really cool gig up in Connecticut and been doing pastured poultry for a while. He does it through a CSA program, and really like his model. It's very similar. I mean, obviously he admits that he based that off the Salatin model, which I think that's what everybody's doing now when it comes to pastured poultry, is using the drag pens or the chicken tractors, whatever term you want to use. So really neat setup, and that's been our motivation. We've seen what Joel Salatin has obviously been promoting for years, and John Siskovich has done, and that's inspired us as well. But this time, instead of just ordering Cornish Cross, we're looking at, we want to do the old Pepsi challenge here. We're going to do Cornish Cross, and Red Rangers. I can't say Cornish Cross fast. And Red Rangers. So Red Rangers are more of a heritage style breed, non-commercial breed, if you will. And as we're reading some of the stats on them, we see that, okay, they supposedly reach a heavier weight than the Cornish Cross, but they take, about 3 more weeks?
Yeah, I think it's at 11 weeks.
Yeah, 11 weeks total versus, 7, 9 weeks for the Cornish Cross. So we're curious what we're going to do. We decided we're going to do an actual scientific study as we can get, and we're getting 15 Cornish Cross in and 15 Red Rangers in early. In fact, they'll be coming in here next month. And we'll get them out on pasture, and we'll have them in their own tractors, their own drag pens, give them the same feed ratio, give them the same water, obviously the same pasture, and we'll just see. When we're ready to process the Cornish Cross, we'll maybe take 1 or 2 Rangers out and process those and weigh them and see where we are, and see if it's time to process those, or go ahead and take those out to the 11 weeks. And of course, the ultimate test is the taste test, so we'll obviously have some fried chicken and that kind of stuff going on. So. We'll document that as well on our YouTube channel, and maybe if Harold's up to it, maybe we'll come back and discuss that as well with this group. So that's what we've got going on. Really excited about that. That was one thing. One thing I thought was funny when we were kind of totally off topic, but going back to burning brush today, I was thinking of what the boys kept looking at me funny, and they were laughing each time they saw me this evening. And then Kelly came up to me and she goes, "What is wrong with you?" And of course I had no idea. And she takes a picture of me and shows me with her phone. I'd evidently reached down and picked up a charred log with my glove on, and then it scratched my face or whatever. So I had this big handprint on the side of my face, just solid black. And everybody just thought that was hilarious. And so when I looked at the picture, I looked like an extra in Braveheart. Yeah. Went around going, freedom. Yeah, big old handprint.
Just need to be blue.
So, yeah, it should have been blue, right? Exactly. So running around, the kids thought that was funny. They thought, what in the world are you guys doing out there? So what are we going to discuss this time? Well, we thought about, we kind of have some debate about this. Again, we're not podcasters. This is new to us, and we're used to having the ability to edit and cut and redo with video work that we do on our channel. So this is kind of new to us. We're trying not to be do a bunch of editing. We definitely don't want to send a bunch of stuff to Harold that he has to edit. So what we discussed back and forth was either homeschooling or raising hogs. Now I know that's a pretty broad difference there, but both are important to us and both happen here regularly. But we decided instead we'd maybe meet in the middle and we'd talk about homesteading hogs. So this will be an interesting topic as we talk about how to homeschool your pigs. No, actually, we decided that homeschooling obviously is a huge topic to get into, and it's one of those things where it could be a little controversial. Would you say, Kel?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, some people feel that. We have some friends that look at us like we have 3 eyes because we homeschool our kids and we've got a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old and they're not losers, right? So they're still they seem to be productive citizens so far.
It's definitely been one of the best decisions we've ever made for us. I mean, it's worked. And we're passionate about it. It's been just a great experience for us. And we won't go into this, but just a little information is we were thinking about doing this before our first son went into kindergarten and decided to go ahead and give it a try in kindergarten and loved it so much that we've just kept trucking along. So it's been going great.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, and there's, again, we can talk about all the situations as to what led us to that, and that's fodder for another discussion. But one thing I will say, and because I don't want to roll a grenade into this podcast and then walk away from it, but we're obviously talking in this group, Harold's audience is homesteaders, and some may feel that, well, if you're not homeschooling, you're not a real homesteader. Obviously, you may not have kids. You may be at the point where your kids are out of the house. It may not be an issue for you, but we don't feel that way. We feel that for us, it was a logical conclusion. If we're taking care of raising our own food, we're taking care of trying to be more self-reliant, more independent on these things, why not obviously go ahead and take control over our education for our kids? But quite frankly, we homeschooled way before we started homesteading. So regardless of our position on homesteading, we were already invested in homeschooling 15 years or what? Well, you knew you were going to take care of him when he was born that way. But you've been homeschooling for now, what? Liam's in 9th grade?
Yes.
Yeah, so kindergarten, so 10 years. So we knew from the start that that's what we wanted to do. So we'll stick a pin in that discussion, and we'll just save that for some other time.
But we definitely realize it's not for everyone.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We were joking with a friend of ours from high school. We were communicating on Facebook, and he was a little frustrated with his son's public school, teaching civics, and the civics was way off of what was accurate with our founding fathers and type of thing. So he was a little aggravated, and I ribbed him a little bit. Said, "Oh, you got to just pull him out and homeschool him. You're a great dad. You do great homeschooling." And he's like, "Absolutely not. That never happened in a million years." So yeah, it's one of those things.
And that's totally cool. I mean,
yeah, it is what it is.
Fits
it is
your situation.
Yeah, and I like the fact that if you feel you can't, or you obviously financially, it's a financial situation because you quit a professional job. You were an accountant. You were making more money than I was when our oldest was born, and so yeah, it was a big financial burden for us immediately to say, okay, you're going to stay home, raise our child, and when it's time that to go to school, you're going to obviously opt out of getting back into work and take care of the education of our son. So it's a big commitment financially. It's a big commitment of time. Don't let anybody fool you that a homeschooling mom, you just sits around on the couch and eats bonbons and tells her kids to go do whatever. I've seen Kelly work her fingers to the bone. She's usually up later than I am on Sunday nights doing lesson plans for the next week. So, but it's one of those things. If you think that homeschooling is not for you, then just be involved in your kids' education wherever that may be, whether it's public school, private school, Christian school, whatever. Just be more involved in that, and that's our challenge. If you're the homesteading mentality, you want to raise your food, you want to raise this, you want to be more self-reliant, and your kids still go to public school or private school, that's fine. But just be more engaged. Make sure you're definitely checking out and seeing what's your kids being taught and understanding that. Well, I said our topic wasn't going to be about homesteading, and I just talked about that for the last 10 minutes, didn't I? It's like we're like the dogs on that cartoon the kids watch, the squirrel. Talk about this.
Let's get back on track.
Let's get back to pigs. All right. So much less controversial is raising pigs. So where to begin? Well, what I want to talk about, and we did a video on this just here recently. The reason why I want to talk about this and kind of overlap is it just brought up a lot of discussion. And after we shot the video, we've had some additional discussion. We belong to another Facebook group that's called Pastured Pigs, and there's people with pork operations that make us look like you just a one-time show type of thing. I mean, these guys are raising. One guy had 40 sows that were farrowing all at once. So, my goodness, even if you had just a smaller litter of 8 to 10, you're looking at 400 piglets hitting the ground at the same time. I can't imagine that. But anyway, so after we've done this video, and I shared that on these groups, we got some really good feedback from people who've been doing this way longer than we have in a much bigger operation. And they really liked, they agreed with a lot of the data that I put out. They gave some recommendations of how I could even straighten up. One guy was even telling me, he's like, hey, your feed costs are high, so if you could find cheaper feed. But he even suggested dosing my feed a little differently. He said, you should be able to cut your feed consumption in half. Pigs shouldn't be eating that much feed. So So yeah, and again, that's kind of debatable with our pasture that we have, and by pasture we say some grass, woodlot, that type of thing. It's not like you look out and see. We're in West Virginia, so nothing's flat. So it's not like you look out and see this beautiful cow pasture that my pigs are frolicking through. It's right now it looks like the surface of the moon because they have just stripped it all down to nothing. But anyway, so that's why we want to come back and kind of rehash this subject. Obviously, different group of people listening to this, different audience, but we felt we'd go ahead and discuss this because I think it's pertinent. So how is this pertinent to the homesteading group? Well, here's the thing. We as homesteaders obviously want to be as self-reliant as possible. Most of us either dream or we're trying to, or we fantasize about saying, hey, I want to be a true homesteader and I don't want to have to go to a day job anymore. I want to stay at home. I want to raise my own money, that type of thing. Well, we know the 18th century days of just not needing currency are gone. We have to pay taxes. We have to pay utility bills. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you still have an internet connection somehow, whether it's your phone or your computer. So there's still expenses. Gone are the days where you don't need money to exist in this great country. So what do we look for? Well, we look for ways that we can make money, and we look for ways that we can, obviously, make money that allows us to stay home more, or maybe not completely. Maybe we can't quit our day job, but at least we can supplement our income. For what reasons? Well, for reasons of maybe staying home or paying off some bills, getting out of debt, working in that direction, or obviously expanding our homestead. We like to take this money from the pigs and just reinvest it in our homestead and do neat things and try new stuff, because to us that's kind of more of the situation is the experience as much as the end game. I'm self-employed, so I don't hate my day job. I still go to an office, but it's my office. I dig that just as much as I like doing the homesteading. But it's really fun to try these new things. So that's kind of the point here. So if you're a homesteader, you're looking to homestead, you say, I got to have some extra money. What do I do? Well, if you want extra money and you really like bacon, then we suggest checking out pigs. So consider hogs. Let's talk, Kel. Let's talk about pros and cons first before we get into the nuts and bolts. I don't want to start off and bore people to death with the accounting side of this, but let's talk about the pros and cons of pigs. So what would you say off the top of your head would be pros and cons of having pigs on your homestead?
Well, definitely the pros. It's just been a great experience for us, especially with kids, and we've done the whole AI. So we've bred our pigs and we've had several litters now, and it's just been a great experience. So we are so excited about delivery date coming up next weekend. That's definitely the biggest pro. One of the cons I might think of is they definitely do some destruction. And you've got to have them in a place that it's okay for them to tear up the ground, which is a good thing for us where we have them, because we're trying to clear more pasture land. So we're letting them be our the clearers of our land. So that's been good.
Yeah, they're like little animals with shovels on the end of their faces that they keep digging stuff. You say destruction, and I think of a story that is one of those things for all you guys listening out there. You can kind of feel where I'm coming from here when your best laid plans kind of mess up and kind of jack up what your wife's got going on. Reminisce a little bit, Kel, about the one time you text me at the office to say, because we had our piglets, they were just weaned, so they were getting away from their moms.
Well, they weren't just weaned. I think they were,
were they still?
Several weeks. I mean, no, they were several weeks past being weaned, but still small. And we have the single strand of electric around the pig pasture. Well, we kept it at a height that the babies wouldn't get hurt, and we knew that they would stay pretty close to their moms, so they would come under in certain points. Well, anyway, they made it up to the house, and I haven't had landscaping for very long, and I'm just checking out the window one day and see them all in the front yard and digging up my plants. I was ready to kill them.
Yeah, so I get a text message. I'm in a meeting. I get a text message that says, your pigs are in our landscaping and they're eating everything. So they became just like my kids when they mess up, they became my pigs. So at that point there was 20 some piglets just turning over landscaping and eating everything. So that was a bit of a downer. But so pigs are fun. The experience is great. They're obviously destructive. Any other pros or cons you see there?
They've been. We've talked about this many times, but they've been one of the best animals, I think, to start out with. I mean, we started out with chickens, and then they were the next animal that we added. I think that's a good one to start out with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we're maybe in the minority when it comes to that, because people feel that raising pigs is a big deal. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head, because we sat around for probably way longer overanalyzing things like we like to think, what are we going to do next? And we had chickens, and we thought, okay, goats, cows, pigs, what are we doing? Well, first thing I started looking at was just the cost of fencing alone. They say the only good goat fence you have is you build your fence and you take a bucket of water and throw it at it. And if any water gets through, then it's not good enough for goats. I've never had goats. So I don't know. Some people could attest to that better than I could. But from what I read, it's like, okay, you got to have really good goat fencing. My brother has sheep, and the sheep spend more time on the outside of the fence than they do on the inside of the fence. And then, of course, cattle. My goodness, we don't have enough cleared land for cattle, and every piece of equipment you need seems to be bigger. You need to be bigger for cattle.
That's a little intimidating, too.
Yeah, bigger tractors, bigger animals, period. So we just kept coming back, and our best inspiration was a podcast, right?
Oh, yes. Chicken Thistle.
Yeah, that was great. I know we
learned so much from them. Yeah,
they've kind of backed off a bit. I know they just did an update podcast in December, but I think it may have been their farewell podcast. I'm not sure. But yeah, they were extremely transparent about their operation, and my goodness, I mean, kudos to them, because they were our sole inspiration. Say, okay, I think we can do this. Let's give this a try. And what I discovered when it came back to looking at the fencing costs, it's like, okay, everybody says electric fence. We could do electric fence. That's not a problem. Electric fence wire is cheap. The insulators are cheap. Pigs don't jump. They're not athletic, so it's not like they're going to be jumping over a 4-foot fence. So we discovered pretty quickly that once they get trained to that electric, and it's all about having really good electric fence. I mean, you want to smell bacon when they walk into it, type of thing. You really want to train them, and those animals are not dumb. They are smart animals.
And as soon as they learn about that electricity, those mama pigs will not even come near. Even when you take the fence down, they will not cross that line.
Yeah, that was one thing I had discovered too in the loading area, that you go back to building solid fence with boards and hog panels and those things, because you don't want electric anywhere around there. If they think, hey, you're squeezing me into a spot that's got electric, ain't happening, Jack. I'm not coming anywhere near there. So, but yeah, they're really smart animals, and they know electric, and they can sense. It's like that shovel in their face is just very sensitive, and they know what's going on. They can sense that electric fence is on, because I've noticed. In fact, I meant to tell you this story the other day, Kel. I noticed that in obviously through the winter, I'm trying to relocate some of our fencing. I had a strand of electric wire had been left on the ground or whatever, and had gotten partially buried and was unearthed here with all this mud moving. So here's about a 10-foot strand of wire laying on the ground, and I noticed you could look at the footprints, the hoof prints in the mud. Pigs aren't anywhere near it. So they completely walk around it, even though it's nowhere near a live line. It's just a piece of scrap laying out in the middle of the pasture, and they were avoiding it like the plague. So, it's a tiny little strand of wire that, I don't know how good pigs' eyesight is, but my goodness, they definitely knew where it was, and they stayed away from it. So it's funny. So as I picked it up, I mean, I could walk around with wire in my hand, and I could, corral them that way, because they're just so intimidated by it. But yeah, so the pig fencing was really inexpensive. I mean, obviously you invest a lot of money in a good charger. Like I said, you can't go wrong. You can't have too big a charger. Unless you back into yourself, then, which I could tell stories about that as well. But yeah, we decided, okay, well, the fencing seemed to be inexpensive. So we jumped right into it. We bought 3 hogs, 3 piglets, just after weaning on a whim quite a few years ago, and said, okay, let's give this a shot. And then we've loved it ever since. So yeah, as Kelly talked about the experience, and, as being one of the pros, if you could unpack that statement, say, well, what is it about the experience? Again, like we mentioned, we homeschool, so bang, here's instant science biology lesson on a regular basis. As I'm doing artificial insemination, I get to explain to the boys very clearly and very plainly what's going on here. That we're making bacon, but we're making it in a way that I'm substituting some of the natural process. And then, of course, the birthing process is just phenomenal for the boys to see that. And again, we've had some loss, so that allows us to have that conversation with them as well. That obviously this is a fallen world, things die, and that type of stuff. So it's just something to get used to. And but then that first, what do we say? The first 3 or 4 weeks when the piglets are little,
they are just. Well, we said this on the last podcast, but they are just like puppy dogs running around, chasing each other, spinning around in circles. It's just awesome. And the kids love that.
It is.
We go down and we sit down in the hay sometimes nearby, but trying not to get in between the mamas and the babies, but just to be near them. And the babies they're very curious, and they are always coming up to smell us and get in our laps, and it's just been great.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, it's one of those situations. If you think about putting pigs on your homestead, obviously the number is key. But no matter what, whether you got 2, whether you got 200, if you can spend time, get down there with the piglets. If you've got kids, grandkids, then it really is a great experience. They are the most playful animal. They're kind of like a dog. They're kind of like a cat. But they're their own thing, their own personalities, and they are hilarious. They spin around, do backflips, and of course they're sometimes gangly. Remember, we had that one we called Fergus. That pig wasn't right. Something wasn't right.
He was too funny.
Something wasn't right with him. He had, maybe he needed glasses or something, but he would spin around and he'd get himself so dizzy that he'd take off running. And we actually have a video. I don't think it's on our YouTube channel. We've got it in just our computer, but he took off running, ran, he was spinning around, got himself dizzy, and took off running, ran smack into a T-post. And then it stunned him so bad, he's just kind of like, you could almost see the little cartoon birds flying around his head there. But, that was hilarious. In fact, we did post some videos on our Facebook channel of Fergus, because I remember people asking me, oh, how's Fergus? What's Fergus doing? Well, Fergus was tasty too, honey.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, so that's the one thing, and I will, that we joke about that, but that is the one thing. Obviously, the more time you spend with your pigs and get them tame, get them used to you, then the easier it's going to be to handle those. But you got to watch. You can't let that. If your goal is to obviously make some money and obviously put some food in your freezer, you can't let that connection get too personal, where you say, okay, this is like taking the family dog to the processor. That's not easy to do. So even with our kids, we explained to them, guys, we're going to enjoy this. This is one of God's creations. We're going to enjoy this, and this pig, we're going to let it be a pig. It's going to have every day of its life is going to be great, and it's going to have one bad day. That's kind of how we look at it. So we let a pig be a pig. So that's why they tear stuff up. We don't ring. We don't do the things we don't do farrowing crates. We let a pig be a pig. So they should be happy pigs up until the unhappy day. But they live a life cycle, and they provide. We breed. We keep genetics alive of certain breeds that are certain ones that we like, that we see have good conformation, good personalities, and are good mamas. So we keep a legacy. We got a pig legacy. And that first time we went to process, we had our first 3 pigs, and we bred 2. In fact, we still have one of those pigs.
Yep.
Yeah, she's actually pregnant right now. She's going to bear Abigail.
She's the one that's due in a week.
Yeah, she's been a great pig. So she's got grandkids. Did you have great grandkids running around yet?
Yep.
Yeah. So she's been a great sow. But her sister and another pig, we got 3 at the very beginning. And Abigail's all we have left. But when we've got the first 3, we decided, okay, we're going to breed these 2. We're going to breed Abigail and Molly, who was a big white landrace, big pig, very ill-tempered, but big pig.
But she was fun too.
She was, yeah. She's just hateful. She's like cranky old woman all the time. But the other one, Notch, is what the boys named her. We decided we're going to process Notch. So that was our first foray into, okay, this is going to be a test. We think we've braced the boys for understanding that we're going to eat this animal that we've played around with, and so we process it, and no tears, nothing like that. They seem to be okay with it. They're kind of just indifferent at first, but the first meal we had where we sat down and we were having, was pork roast? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think so.
So you'd made one of the roasts. So we sat down and just waiting. I didn't say anything about the boys to the boys, and they sat down, and our oldest was about halfway through it, and he says, "Is this notch?" I said, yeah, it is. I said, "What do you think?" He's like, "That's really good." And so then they were joking from that point on. I got a little notch in my teeth. "Oh, you got some notch left on your plate. Oh, can I have some more notch, please?" So
that's boys for you.
Yeah, so they seem to be okay with that. So, you just have to test that with your own kids or grandkids in that situation, or yourself, to see, okay, am I going to be able to do this? Well, we've obviously rambled on about pigs a lot, but let's talk about some mechanics here. So how to, I dangled this carrot earlier in the podcast about saying, how do you raise pastured pork for profit, or at least break even, so you've got free pork in your freezer, or you can make that extra money on your homestead. So let's get into that. Again, we talked about our model is pastured pork. So what's that mean? Well, it just means our pigs are not confined to a pigsty or a pig pen. They have the ability to walk around. They've got 5 acres to access. And at any time, we don't have any more than 30 pigs on farm. At one time, we had 34 during a very prolific farrowing. We had some loss. So we don't try to finish that many hogs. We try to finish, I like 25 or less is my goal. This year we had 22, and then we have our 4 breeding sows. So we had 26 pigs on pasture. They have access to 5 acres. So that's a lot of pigs, and some of you may say, well, I don't have 5 acres of pasture, so this is already, I'm going to turn this off. It's already a non-starter for me. But obviously you don't have to raise that many. Our model we want to show and explain, and what we discuss in our video, is that just start with 3 like we did. And what you're going to do with those 3 hogs is you're going to finish all 3 of them, and you can take one and process it for yourself. So bang, you've got one whole hog to go in the freezer or to smoke can, however you're going to do it. You've got meat that will hopefully provide for your family for an entire year there. But the other 2 you're going to sell to friends, family, co-workers, whatever you can find. Find somebody that wants, just find 2 customers that will buy those whole hogs off of you. Now, again, we understand, we fully realize and recognize that our area, our geographic area may be different than yours when it comes to prices, and it comes to availability, and it comes to demand or supply. You could be in Iowa where hog country is, and everybody and their brother has a hog, or you could be somewhere else where it's very prolific. So obviously weigh what we're telling you against your local situation there, and be sure to do some homework. Don't just take this as gospel and say, "Oh, Troy said I could make this much money, I'm going to go do it right now." So look at that. So start with 3. So where do you get these 3 pigs? Well, I feel this is very important, and I don't want to offend anybody. If you guys run livestock auctions, then I apologize. But I'm going to stereotype when I shouldn't. But we really recommend, is our experience, don't go buy feeder pigs from a livestock auction. You just don't know what you're getting. If you want to buy piglets at weaning, go find a farm. Go find a small farmer like us trying to make some extra cash. That way you can talk to the guy. You can see the pigs on the ground. You can see how they're being treated. You can see what they look like. You can see what they're being fed. And if a guy's not giving you this information, then okay, red flag. Maybe we move on to somewhere else. But with an auction, all you're seeing is something come rolling in. It could have been pumped up. It could have been whatever to make it look healthy, and it could be an absolute mess. And not to mention just livestock auctions in general. It's an opportunity for a lot of disease. It's kind of like everybody licking the water faucet at the airport. That's a face. It's a shame we don't have video on that. Yeah, it's obviously something you don't want to do. So there's a lot of opportunity for disease and all that stuff. And that's the last thing you want to do is you try to do this endeavor. You invest in your infrastructure. You do all that, and the day that comes to bring the pigs home, when you bring home some sick pigs and they're dead as Dillinger in a week, that's definitely not what you want. So I recommend looking for local farms, looking for those that are weaning these pigs and they're ready to sell them to you, so you can kind of hit the ground running with that. That's what we did. We bought from a local farm. We started with 3, and then now we breed our own. So obviously each year I don't have to go deal with that. I don't have to go buy piglets. We breed our own. But when you're starting out, just look for a good buyer. As far as breed, that's a whole nother discussion. We won't get into that. I mean, because there's obviously heritage breeds, there's commercial breeds. We're kind of making our own mutts with how we're doing our breeding. And we like the hybrid vigor we get, but we have a Duroc base. Really like the meat and the consistency you get out of a Duroc. But we're trying some other stuff. In fact, these new ones are going to have some Berkshire in it, so I'm anxious to see how those turn out. So 3 pigs. You're going to finish 3 hogs. So what's the finishing time? We say 7 months. This is our model. So again, the data I'm going to give you is based upon our model. This is real data. This is data that we calculated just last week. So I'm not picking up numbers. I'm not making everything arbitrary. It's our model. So you can say, okay, I'm going to try to do Troy's model, and hopefully it gets you in the ballpark. So 7 months. So 7 months lifespan. So if you're buying wiener pigs, wean pigs, everybody laughs when I say wiener pigs. Can't figure that out. If you're buying pigs that have been weaned, depending on how a farmer does it, that may be 5 weeks to 8 weeks. We always do 8 weeks. So if you think a 7 month window, you've already got 2 months out of the way. So you're going to have, if you've got an 8 week old pig, then you're going to have 5 more months that you're going to finish that. So the question is, okay, what about infrastructure? Well, we've talked about that. If you have pasture, great. Put them out on pasture, electric fence. You got to do some training there. We can, obviously, that's, again, another discussion on how to train a piglet to understand electric fence. But once you get past that, you've got a great opportunity there to really allow them to get some forage. Now, what if you say, hey, man, I live on an acre, I live on 2 acres, I'm not sure I can pull this off. Well, you can still keep a pig in a pig sty. You can keep it in an area, but just understand, people say, oh, I can't do pigs, pigs stink. Well, why do pigs stink? Well, pigs stink because they are forced to stay in a confined area. And most people, because a pig is a large animal, it can really drop some feces. They don't keep those areas clean. With a pastured hog, we rarely have a smell. When we wean and we have to separate the piglets, we keep them in the barn area. That sometimes gets a little funky. Right now, there's probably a little tinge of pig because of all this rain we've been having. They've been staying close to the barn. It's just been a muddy mess. So the more confined you have a pig, the more animal husbandry skills you're going to have to do as far as keeping it clean, keeping some bedding down, keeping that. But anything about a pig is they won't. Everyone says they lie on their own filth, but if you give them enough room in your paddock, your pigsty, they'll actually pick a corner and say, okay, this is the bathroom. This is where we're going to go. And I see that all the time, even with piglets when we're weaning. So 8 week old piglets, they all go to the same corner. So you can go in there with a pitchfork and clean all that out and keep some fresh bedding down. So infrastructure is key. Figure that out, how it fits your model. But then the next big cost that you're going to run to, of course, is the feed. So, okay, what are we talking about feed costs here to finish a pig for 7 months? So your first initial cost that I didn't address was when you buy these feeder pigs, you got to obviously buy them. So what's the average cost of a feeder pig? It's all over the board. Right now, pig prices are pretty much in the gutter. So I would safely say $50 a head. I know right now, again, I don't go to livestock auctions, but I know right now that at some livestock auctions are actually giving away. Just if the lot's not doing well, then say, hey, just get these out of here. But I would safely assume $50 a head right now. So plan on $150 you're going to spend in getting those piglets. So how do we sell these pigs? Well, when it comes time to process at 7 months, we sell them as wholes or halves. So again, to keep this from being a complicated model, let's just address whole. So you've got, in this scenario, you get 3 pigs, you finish them at 7 months. You're going to take 3 to the processor. One's going to come back and go in your freezer, and the other 2 are going to come back and go to 2 customers that you found. How are you going to sell that? Well, you're going to sell that at $3.50 a pound hanging weight. And again, this is our model. You may not get that. You may be able to get more. Hanging weight is the weight of the pig, not when it's live and walking around, but after it's been put down and it's been gutted and skinned. So it's hanging up. That's why it's called hanging weight. It's hanging there in the first stages of processing. That is usually 72 to 76% of the total weight of that pig. So if you go to a processor, they'll say, okay, hanging weight is X. So you call your customers. This is what I do. I send an email out to all my customers and say, okay, your pig weighed X. So that's going to cost X times 350. That's what I need plus processing costs. We do not include processing costs on ours. And that's something that's extra. And we'll get into that. So that's your goal, is $3.50 a pound for a whole. Now we do for a half, just for the management of taking a whole pig and telling the processor split it this way. There's extra management that goes involved. It's involved with that. And obviously just extra handling, we bump up $1 a pound. So we go $4.50 a pound on a half. So in that situation, if you can find 4 customers to split those 2 hogs, then you've got better profit potential. Okay, real quick, let's talk about feed costs. Now, like I said, I'm going to use real numbers here, and I'm going to consult my notes, so bear with me if this seems a little dry. But real data, this is from our last run. When did we start, Kel? We had pigs hit the ground in...
It was the last week of May.
Last week of May. That's right, because we were in sunny Florida when my pigs were farrowing. Yes.
Not a good experience.
Yeah, who's a genius that did the calculations on that? Okay, so looking at feed costs. Now, here's the thing. When you're buying pig feed, don't go to Tractor Supply, don't go to Rural King, don't go to those places and buy your feed because you're going to go broke quick. You need to find a feedlot. We drive an hour to get to our feedlot. I say feedlot, that's not the correct term. A grain mill, feed mill. Oh my goodness, it's been a long day. We drive an hour to get to our feed mill, and these guys are full blown custom mix. If I order over 1,000 pounds, I could do a custom mix, all that type of stuff. So they know what they're doing, and I get a much better price. It's worth it. If I just go to some of the local feed stores or Tractor Supply, I pay exactly double to buy the same type of feed. So what do we do? So when we wean our pigs at 8 weeks, they've already had access to some feed because they kind of do both. Obviously, they get milk and cereal at the same time. So they're used to feed at that point. But when we're ready to wean, we buy 16% protein hog feed. So that's a little bit higher protein than what you would finish the hog with. 16 and 12% are the 2 types we're talking about. So I usually buy 16% up to a certain spot. Now that's kind of arbitrary because I just look at the weight of the pig and I look at the weight of my wallet and say, okay, these pigs are doing great. My wallet's not doing so great, so let's back her down a little bit. But this year I bought. Now again, this is for 22 pigs. So you may say, okay, how are we going to do this math here? Well, I'm going to come up with the average of the feed consumption per pig, and then that you can apply that to this 3 hog scenario. So with 22 pigs, I bought 7,500 pounds of 16% over the course of, 3 months. And that total out of pocket was $1,008.85. So $1,008.85 for the 16% for 22 hogs. Then I moved on to 12%. And at 12%, obviously my pigs are getting bigger. They're eating a lot more. So I bought 19,900 pounds of 12% throughout that time. And that was from, looks like my first purchase was October 31st of 2016. My last purchase was January 19th of 2017. I have 19. Obviously, I didn't buy that 2 years in the future. So from October to January, 19,900 pounds of feed was purchased for a total of $23.77.70. So $2,377.70. So grand total of feed, combining my 16% and my 12%, was 27,400 pounds. Total out of pocket in feed was $3,300 at $33.86.55. So $3,386.55. Now again, that's 22 hogs. So you may think, wow, that's a lot of money. And again, that's 22 hogs. Talking to some guys that have 400, 500 hogs, I can't imagine what their feed bill looks like. So the thing I want to kind of put a pin in here, and what I've learned after releasing this video and discussing that some people are saying, hey, your feed conversion should be better. You should be able to get your hogs to that weight with less feed. That may be the case. We're obviously going to experiment with some of this stuff. So let's just say this is worst case scenario. But one thing to point out, you can look at my schedule, and we're correcting that this year. My schedule, because of our climate, we're in Zone 6 in central West Virginia. Our pigs around October, usually the 1st of October, 2nd week of October, when our first hard frost comes on and kills everything. So we don't have any pasture replenishing then. So here we are in February, and we're getting our hogs. We got our hogs processed. So you can see that from October till now, there ain't nothing to eat. I mean, they're obviously uprooting roots and finding stuff underground, but there's not a lot of pasture. There's not any forage. All the acorns have been vacuumed out of the pasture. So yeah, they're just relying on a lot of feed right now. So what we're doing to correct that is obviously that's why we're farrowing next week. Because if we go 7 months, that takes us to October. So we are ready to go to the processor before the first frost hits. So that's going to make a big difference in feed conversion, I'm hoping. So we'll be able to look at that. So $3,300 out of pocket for feed. So the average feed consumption per hog is 1,245 pounds. And that's where this one guy was telling me that has a lot of experience, hey, that's a little high. You need to get a better conversion there. But if we break that out to cost, my average feed cost per pig for 22 pigs is $153.94. So that's the magic number we're going to look at. Because feed, you usually do not get, in our experience, we don't get a sliding scale. So if you say, well, wait a minute, Troy, you're buying 19,000 pounds of feed, you're getting a better price. No, not the way these feed mills work. Most of them don't work that way. If I buy that much, it's the same unit price. It's still around, I think it averages around $12. And it's a commodity, so it moves too. So sometimes it'll go as low as like $11.86, and sometimes I've seen it as high as almost $13. Just depends on how the local farms and the suppliers are doing there. So let's remember this $153.94 per hog. So what are our pig costs that we're going to add up? So 3 feeder pigs, like I said, at $50 a piece is $150. If we look at the feed cost to get them through 7 months, that's $153.94 times 3. That's $461.82. Add all that together, $611.82. Let's look at processing. So throw processing on top of that. Processing is all over the board because you can do so many things with pork. You're going to smoke your meat. You're going to slice it. You're going to have it put in sausages. You're going to do Italian sausage. All those things cost extra. So for the sake of easy math and for a good average, let's say $200 per hog processing. So you put $600 on top of $611. That comes to a total out of pocket of $1,211.82. So that's $1,211.82. So $1,211.82 to buy your piglets, raise them for 7 months, giving them all this feed, and then take them to the processor and processing. Now, I realize there's obviously some nuance there. There's some other things that have to be addressed. Probably smaller, but you may look at it and say, well, this is investment in infrastructure that I can spread out over the couple years if you continue to do this, if it's profitable. But also, this isn't a sure thing, too, because you could have loss, you could have predation, you could have sickness, you could have a pig not put on weight, all those type of things. So, again, this isn't a slam dunk. But in this model, again, $1,211.82 total out of pocket. So, again, let's do the math here. Again, I'm using my model. So this is my 22 pigs that I ran, giving them this much feed. So the real magic number is, okay, Troy, what was your hanging weight? So if that X variable that you expressed earlier at $3.50 a pound times the hanging weight is where this gross profit is going to come in. So what do we have? Well, my average on 22 hogs this year, which was amazing because it was way higher than it was last year, was 277 pounds. So we had some big old hams walking around. In fact, we were supposed to take 15 to the processor the first run, but the livestock trailer we used, I could only get 12 in, and that was almost stacking them sideways because they had some chunky pigs walking around. So 277 pounds. So if you look at that math and say $3.50 per pound at 277 pounds hanging, that's $969.50 per hog. So obviously, if you're going to keep one hog for yourself, in our scenario of 3 hogs, you keep one, so obviously you're not going to sell that, but you're going to sell the other 2. That's $969.50 times 2. That's $1,939. So $1,939 minus the $1,211.82 total out of pocket is a net of $727.18. So with 2 pigs that you sell out of the 3, you not only got, I'll have my accountant check that. She's looking at my notes there. Is that right, accountant? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it looks to be. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Seal of approval from the accountant. I hope that's the case because I've been lying to people if that's not. So.
No, I just wanted to see what you had written here.
That's right. That's always good to have the accountant look at it after the fact. No, so $700 profit. Now again, please don't pin me to the wall on that and say, okay, I did what you 7 months later. I'm cussing Troy because I didn't make $727. A lot of variables. I mentioned one big thing is transport. It's all nice and easy to have pigs on your homestead until you realize, okay, how do I get them there? Because you can't shoot them in the head and take them there dead. That doesn't work. They frown upon that. You have to take them live. So you have to have transport. And fortunately, I've got a very gracious neighbor who we do some trades, and he's got a really nice livestock trailer, and he lets us use that. So that's an expense, whether you hire somebody, whether you figure it out your own, whether you buy your own trailer or you make a box in the back of your truck and you don't put them in the back of your sedan, or don't put them in the back of your wife's SUV when you buy them to bring them home the first time, because that's not a good idea either. That's a whole different story.
They do wee all the way home. It's true.
That was great. I wish we were doing video at that point, because that would have been a hilarious video. It was like the Exorcist of pigs. They were squealing out one end and shooting things out the back of the other all the way. It was an hour drive. Yeah, that vehicle smelled great for a while. Anyway, we digress. So $727 profit potential raising 3 pigs on your homestead. 2 customers you need, processing. You got to find a good processor. My goodness, that's a whole nother story. We can talk about the woes of having a lousy processor. But that's a great opportunity to get started in hogs. And if you say, man, this worked great, I want to do this again, please don't go out and say, okay, I'm going, instead of buying 3 feeder hogs, I'm going to buy 30, and we're going to really ramp this up. Because everything, when you scale the amount of animals you have, then everything has to be scaled. So when it comes time to talking about feed, I haul, with my 22 hogs, I haul at times 6,000 pounds of feed an hour, one direction. So that takes a large trailer, my truck, a lot of fuel. And those are the type of things that obviously I'm not putting in this cost assessment. So if you have to drive like I do, then you're eating into that profit. That $727 gets eaten away a little bit. If you need a tractor to haul things around, if you're going to buy these big bulk feeders, with 22 pigs, we had to buy a big bulk feeder. All those things just add to it. So as you scale up from 3 pigs, you're going to have additional costs. But if you discover that, hey, this works for me, I've got the space on my homestead, this worked out great, my 2 customers love it, they've told their friends they want more, then maybe try 4 or 5 next time. Just look and just be cautious in your upscale on that. But I think it's a great opportunity to not only have a great time, great fun, and my goodness, who doesn't like bacon? I mean, we love bacon. We sold out. Well, I'll get to that point in a second. Another option, and I don't recommend this starting out, because you really had to do a lot more homework, and it requires you to really look at what your state requires. But our other option we do, like this year, 22 hogs, I didn't sell all 22 hogs as wholes or halves to my customers. In fact, I sold a minority of those to as wholes and halves. What we've done with our operation now, we're to the point where we have it processed commercially. So it's packaged, it has my Red Tool House brand on it, and it comes back, and we actually store that here in our freezers. And then I can sell it as individual cuts. Well, I get larger unit costs on that. So, for example, a bag of sausage, a 1 pound bag of sausage, is $5.50 a pound. So if you think about it, okay, I can sell the whole hog for $3.50 a pound, or I can sell individual cuts at a minimum of $5.50 a pound. So that gives you a little bit more profit potential there. But obviously you got to move it all. Instead of finding 2 customers or 4 customers, you got to find a whole bunch of customers. So that gets into marketing, which is a whole different animal here. But so we've done that, and that's been great, because we go from $5.50 a pound on sausage all the way up to, we had to raise the price of our bacon because it went so fast last time, to $8.50 a pound. So last year we had somewhere around 200 pounds of bacon, and we sold out of that in less than a month. I mean, it just went fast.
Well, that's what everybody knows and what everybody wants, and
sure.
So that's our...
Yeah, how much smoked jowl did we sell last year, Kelly?
1 package? 2 packages?
Yeah, and liver. What was it? Pork liver. We sold 1 package of pork liver and 1 package of smoked jowl. I was giving jowl away, which is funny because the smoked jowl to us tastes like bacon with just a little saltier and just as a little different consistency, but very bacon-esque. Didn't sell a bit of it. People look at you like you got a third eye on your head and you say, hey, you want some jowl? No, isn't that a pig cheek? Yes, it is, but it's delicious pig cheek. So that's another option, and we sold out of bacon. We moved a lot of cuts. You have stuff left over. Obviously, you get to where, like right now, as we're getting our new load coming in, people show up and it's like, hey, you want a pork roast? Welcome to our house. Here, have a pork roast. Oh, have a dozen eggs too. So that's another option as well. But again, that comes back. You got to check your state laws. You got to check all those deals. Find a processor that is inspected to be able to do those individual cuts like that. Because that's our problem. That's why we drive 2 hours away to go to a processor, because nobody local can handle that. So that's it in a nutshell. Let me see. If I missed anything, Kel, I don't think I have. That's it in a nutshell as far as why we think if you're homesteading and you want to try to make some extra cash, you want to find a way to raise pork for free or put some money back in your pocket in this venture, and you want to try pigs, then give this model a shot. Now, I just threw a ton of data at you, and if you're like me and you listen to podcasts, you're in the truck. So hopefully you weren't trying to write all this stuff down, and I've caused you to jerk the wheel into a bridge abutment or something like that. So hopefully that's not the case. But I know Harold doesn't mind our shameless plugs here, but if you want to see details with visuals on this, then just go to YouTube, search Red Tool House Homestead, and it's our latest episode 14. It's all about this, and I have graphics that I bring up to show the individual data. I even show my individual feed bills for the entire year as I purchase those. So that will that will explain that in a little more detail. Check that out if you really want to explore this, and feel free. You can go to the Homestead Front Porch. Just tag Troy McClung if you want a question, ask me a question about this. I'll be more than happy to answer anything I've done here. And if you want to maybe shoot some holes in what I've said or make some suggestions there. Again, I'm by no means an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. I just know what's worked for us. I haven't gone broke doing this. I've been able to supplement our income, reinvest that in our homestead, and done some pretty neat things with that. So it's worked out great for us. And in my mind, I thought, I'm going to go to 60 pigs. I'm going to go 100 pigs. This is going to be great. We're going to be the pork kings of West Virginia. And realized, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that at all. I want to stick where I am. I've got great customers. I love where I am right now. And managing less than 25 hogs at a time is great. I love it. It allows me to focus on other things. I don't want to be a hog farm. I want to be a homestead. But the hogs help supplement my homesteading dreams. Well, we'll wrap that up. Here I am at an hour again, and try not to ramble on too much, but we've rambled on quite nicely. So we'll wrap this up. Kelly, anything you want to add?
Should we mention that we had talked about the kids being around the pigs, and maybe just need to mention that that the mama pigs are large pigs, and we need to be careful with any large animal and having our kids in there. So we're well aware of that, and making sure to monitor and not feel too safe, even though, we've grown close to them, but still we need to be careful.
Well said. Spoken like a very responsible mother. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Our sows right now are right around 600 pounds. And trust me, when I go to feed them and a 600-pound sow steps on your toe because she wants at the feed bowl and you're in the way, it hurts. So just imagine, if you've got small kids, you don't want them, you don't want to leave them around in there. Pigs can be aggressive. Obviously, any animal can be aggressive, but you got 600 pounds coming at you. They're little bulldozers. Their center of gravity is so low, they will take you out at the knees if they decide to do so. And the thing,
not that they're trying to, usually, but
no, I mean,
ours have been pretty docile.
Knock on wood, yeah. I mean, I've never had any issues with the pigs, but you always hear these stories. And the one thing that always stops and sticks in my mind is and this may gross some people out, but during deer season, when we get a deer, I butcher it and skin it out, and take care of all that myself. Well, I obviously have some extras when I finish processing my deer, so I take it down to the pigs. And they like to snack on some venison as well. And when I watch a sow bite through the femur of a full size deer without slowing down, it sounds like he's eating a bag of pretzels. Then that's an animal you got to respect. So it's one of those things that they've got some bite power, and they can take a finger clean off if you're not watching. So. And again, they just want to eat. If your finger looks like sausages, they'll be all over.
And when they're that big, they're slow. So it's not that they're coming after you, but just be careful with your kiddos. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to freak people out about that, but definitely you got to respect that. And again, you guys as homesteaders know that. You respect cattle, you respect pig, even respect a chicken, for crying out loud. How many people get flogged by roosters? So just keep that in mind. And that's a little PSA for you there. Just if you get into hogs and you get around them, don't turn your back on them. My neighbor, who's been a farmer for 30 years, he refuses to get into the hog pen with me. I'm in there, riding a pig, sitting on him like it's a horse, like I'm Slim Pickens, and riding a nuclear bomb in there. So it's just one of those things where that's a really bad movie reference too, by the way. It's one of those things where he's like, man, I've been around too many hogs. He said, I don't have anything to do with them. So he doesn't like getting in there. So just keep that in mind if you decide to raise. Alrighty. So we'll close. We'll stick a fork in this thing and we'll get on the road here. Again, as we're hoping that Harold will be back next week, that's tentatively his plan. He'll let us know if that's not the case. Again, please keep his mother in your prayers. We pray that she has a recovery and can get out of ICU, and these complications from surgery are not too severe. But again, check out Harold's website, smalltownhomestead.com. Man, he's got a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of information. Blog updates. I'm not quite sure how much blog work he's been able to do here recently, but he's got a ton of blog stuff. And if you're a content creator as well, if you have a blog, he's got his thing called the Blog Hop, so you can post your blog on there, and it's a great way of building community. That's what I really like about Harold. He's really focused on building homestead community. He's not in this for money. He's not in this for anything other than just seeing what he loves grow. So that's what I appreciate about him and really like about his approach to this. Again, if you're not in Facebook, man, you're missing some great conversation. Check out the Homestead Front Porch. It's a private group, so just click the join, the request to join, and Harold will approve that and let you in there, and be ready for some great conversation. Again, I'm in there, so feel free to tag Troy McClung if you want to talk about what we talked about tonight. Ask any questions there, but a really good group of people, and it's growing like crazy. I think it's grown 300 to 500 members since we podcasted last week, so it's growing really well. Good conversation. So check that out. And again, if you want to find out anything more about us, Kelly and Troy, what we've got going on here in Central West Virginia, just go to redtoolhouse.com. You can Google Red Tool House. There's not too many other things out there like that, so just Google that or go to redtoolhouse.com or check us out on YouTube. Well, we pray that you all have a great week and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. To see the show notes for this podcast or listen to other podcast episodes, go to smalltownhomestead.com. There you can also read our blog, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and take advantage of the many resources we make available to help you along in your homesteading journey. Please share this podcast and help us to carry out our mission of helping others to homestead today for a better tomorrow.